In this video, we're going to talk over a couple different USB amp meter options. The first one is a USB amp meter for your standard USB A and then USB A out, which you also have some USB-C in and out options here on the side and a way to power on via micro USB as well. There's also an on-off switch on here and a couple navigation buttons on each side. So we're going to talk about a couple different things with this one, and we'll also move over to this USB-C amp meter, and we'll talk about the advantages and when to use this one over this one. So I'm going to set this one over to the side for now, and then we're going to focus on this one. We're going to go ahead and plug this one in. This one will plug in on this side here, and we're going to use a USB extension cord for the purpose of this video, and we're going to go ahead and plug this one in here. And when it powers on, the first thing that you're going to see here is you're going to see that it is pulling in, it's registering 5.15 volts. We don't really pay attention to this number here because it's kind of variable, but we do look at it, but it's going to continue to vary. So we'll just call this 5.15 volts. And we can see 0 amperage, so we're not pulling any amperage, which is good because we don't have anything plugged into it. So you can look at some of these different numbers down here. Normally, we don't. You can also look at the mega amp hours, megawatt hours. But for the purpose of what we're doing with this particular video, our primary concern is these two numbers, the volts and the amps. Typically, when you are doing a intake, you want to record the current, the amps that the phone is taking, especially if the phone is showing a no power issue or maybe having a charging issue of some sort. But regardless of what you're checking it in for, you would want to record the current amperage that the phone is taking so that you can compare it to the amperage that it's taking when it leaves the shop, so that there is no discrepancies between you and the customer. So we're going to go ahead and plug in this cord here, and we're going to go ahead and grab a phone. I'm going to grab this phone here, and immediately you can see the voltage drop down a little bit. That could be an indication that there's something wrong with the phone, or that there could be an indication of something wrong with the cord. It could also mean absolutely nothing. It didn't drop down a ton, but it did drop down a little bit. Now, it is pulling 0.936, 0.93794, somewhere around there, 942 amps. And we can kind of see that number is moving up and down a little bit, but potentially 0.94. But we can see it kind of moving up and down. And while you may or may not be able to see that on the screen, I can see that this is giving me a charging indicator. It's giving me a battery icon. And it's very, very light, but I can see that it is giving me a battery icon. Now, this does fall asleep every once in a while, so you just have to press this button here on the side to wake it up, and there it is again. So once we can see the voltage and we can see the amperage, we can take a look and we can say, okay, that's what we have. Now, should you have a no power issue, or maybe you're plugging a phone in and it's giving you a positive charging indicator and it's not taking a charge, and you say, you know what, let me plug it in, you can kind of see that, hey, maybe it's registering the cord, but it's not really pulling any amps, or it's pulling in less than desirable amount, and that's why it's not charging properly. And then you can go from there in diagnosing your issue. Now, again, I've got some beat up phones here, so we can see now this phone decided to jump up to 1.6. We're still getting about that 4.8 volts. I'm just going to wake this up again here. And you can see here that it is taking a charge. However, I got nothing Oh, wait, I got a battery icon on the screen. So I'm getting a positive charging indicator. So I can see that that is working. I don't know if I have a phone here. I'm going to try one more phone here. I think this one was stuck in... There we go. There's an Apple logo. This might be stuck in DFU mode. So this is a recovery phone. So you can see here, however, it is showing that it is on. It's taking power. And I can see that it is charging. Now, if I wanted to switch to a USB-C device, I can do that. With this particular one, you just have to have the USB-A to USB-C type charging, and you can plug that in. And I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in, and I've got 5 point or drop down to 4.97 volts, and then we're getting 0.84 volt or amps currently being drawn. It is currently booting up. So this, you might want to wait for a phone to boot up or start up before you record it, as the voltage might change. But we do have a positive charging indicator here in the corner, and we can see that this phone is comfortably pulling in 8.839 amps. Now, this is a phone that should be able to indicate fast charging. So that's going to be our segue into our next amp meter, because this is basically, with this particular one, you have a USB-A that goes to a Lightning or USB-C. You plug it into the phone. You have your volts, you have your amps, and you record the information into the ticket. You may want to consult with your manager and your repair guides as for understanding different readings, because they do vary per device. So we can't quite go over how to interpret every single reading. However, the numbers that you would want to record that are important is the amperage. That is what the power that is going to the phone, that the phone is drawing from. The voltage is like the max volts that the cord in the charging hub will allow in the device. So usually it's approximately about 5 watts. But if we wanted to measure a 20 watt amperage meter, that's where we would come in with our USB-C. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect this. Set that out of the way. And with this one, we plug power into this side with the USB-C cord. I have this USB-C cord plugged into approximately a 20 watt USB-C hub. And this side will go into the device. So we're going to go ahead and plug this in. And as soon as you plug it in, it will power on. And I do apologize, but this particular model has very dark writing on the screen. I can throw it in this mode here that will give it a little bit of a brighter screen. But it's very hard to read the amps because it shows up in red on the display. So, which is hard to come through the camera here, so I do apologize, but I will read it out to you. But here up at the top, you can see that this particular device is now pulling 9.08 volts. This is really cool because before the other one, we could only pull up to 5 volts. So we can actually test our fast chargers on with these USB-C amp meter to see if it is charging appropriately, if we can get faster charge rates. Now currently this device is pulling in approximately 1.2 amps, and it's kind of varying. We are getting a positive charging indicator here so that we know that it is charging, but that would be how you would tell. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect this one, and I'm going to plug in a different device and we'll go from there. Now the voltage does depend on a couple different variables. It depends on the cord that you're using. It depends on where the cord is plugged into, whether you're plugged into a charging adapter straight to an outlet, you're using a hub that has rated for different power usage. or if you're plugged into a hub that, is a 5 watt or 20 watts or 100 watts, it does make a difference, and it will dictate all of what is going to. Now, this particular one does say that it can go up to 30 volts. So it can go from 4.2 volts to 30 volts. And current would mean it can go up to a max of 5 amps. So in this particular brand. So we're going to go ahead and find a phone here. And we'll use this one. So a new phone here, and then it's also pulling 9 amps. And again, this is approximately 1.2 amps. So most of these Samsung phones will pull in fast a higher number of volts just because of the fact that they have those built-in fast chargers, and they can do 20-watt charging fairly easily. Now, one of the things that you can do with this that I don't have an example of here in this phone, but you can use these with iPads, iPad Pros, and iPad Airs for testing the charging port to make sure it's charging appropriately. You can also use these with MacBooks or any device basically that uses a USB-C charging port. So that's really cool with this particular device, and I highly recommend that everybody has one, because it is a little bit better to test any USB-C device directly from the port so that you can determine the maximum number of wattage. If you know something is supposed to be getting a fast charger, it should be pulling 10 amps or more in from a device, then that, and it's not pulling the 10 volts, there could be something wrong with the device. So something to keep in mind in terms of what this means. Again, with any amp meter, we can't tell you exactly what each of the readings means. However, this should give you a good indication of where to start.